Hello, everyone, and welcome to a briefing call on the Interagency Task Force on Israeli-Arab Issues and Government Resolution 2397 with your host, Michal Steinman. I'm opening the line. Sorry about that, Michal. Your line is now open. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Shalom, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. A few weeks ago, the government of Israel approved Resolution 2397, a new Socio-Economic Development Plan for Negev Bedouins. This 3 billion shekels plan is the largest ever developed for the Bedouin community, which is by far the weakest community in Israel by all socio-economic measures. And therefore, if implemented successfully, this plan has the potential to be a real game changer for the Bedouin society. 2 weeks ago, right before Passover, we had the opportunity to hear from Yariv Mann of the Directors for Economic and Community Development of Negev Bedouin, the body that is in charge of creating and implementing this plan. We heard from him about the plan rationale and main objectives as far as the Israeli government perspective. The purpose of today's call is to learn about the perspective of the civil society in the Negev, what opportunity it sees in this plan, what challenges it identifies, and what is the discourse, and to hear from them what is the discourse within Bedouin society in regards to this plan. So we're therefore grateful to be joined today by Kher Albaz and Ariel Dloomy, co-executive director of the largest and one of the most meaningful NGOs working in the Negev, AJEEC-NISPED, the Arab Jewish Center for Equality, Empowerment, and Cooperation at the Negev Institute for Strategies of Peace and Development. And through multiple programs from economic development to social enterprises, volunteerism, early childhood education, health, Jewish-Arab partnerships, and more, AJEEC is present in probably every aspect of the challenges facing Bedouin society today. And therefore, we invited them to share, to really share their insights as major civil society players on this plan. So, Kher, Ariel, welcome. Thank you for joining us. And Ariel, please, the floor is yours to open.
Thank you, Michal. I would like to thank you and to the members of the task force for inviting us to speak today. So hello, shalom, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. In the next 15 minutes, Kher and myself are going to do several things. We were going to start and present the new bill. You already spoke to Mr. Yariv Mann 2 weeks ago, so we are not going to get into the details, but to put everybody on the same page. We will speak about the opportunities that we see in the new bill, but also about the constraints or the landmines that we envision. And we will end up by also speaking about our proposals, our suggestions. And then I guess that we can open the floor for questions and for a discussion. So again, we are speaking about a 3 billion shekels bill. The bill was approved some 2 months ago. And it's addition to another bill, the 922 bill, that has been approved a year ago for the development of the entire Arab society in Israel. The current bill for the Bedouin society is going to concentrate around 4 main areas: infrastructures, formal education, municipalities, and economic development. We think that this bill is a great evolution. It's a great development compared to previous investments in the Bedouin society. There are 3 main sources for the 3 billion shekels. The first one is the new bill. This is roughly 1.3 billion shekels. And the 2 other sources are the general government decision for the Arab society in Israel, Decision 922. And the third source of income is a budget that already exists in the different ministries. So the additional money that comes from this decision to the Bedouin society is 1.3 billion shekel over a period of 5 years. Again, we think that this is a great opportunity for the Bedouin society. and the aim is to make sure that the money, in the end of the day, reach out to the people. We also think that it was very, very important to emphasize the role of the Bedouin municipalities in this government plan. In fact, 500 million shekels are going to be distributed through the municipalities. We know that some of these municipalities are relatively weak. They have less knowledge, less experience in handling serious projects in terms of planning and implementation. And we will also touch upon this in a few minutes when we suggest our intervention programs. I'm handing over now to Kher also to speak about the perspective of the Bedouin society and also the constraints that we see in the program.
Thank you, Ariel, and good evening. Shalom, salam to everybody. And again, thank you for inviting us to speak to you and share with you some of our thoughts and insights. In terms of the Bedouin community, the way that the community itself looks at this plan is as something new, as something that did not happen before. The fact that in terms of developing the plan, the Bedouin community was consulted, including NGOs, including civil society organizations. Myself and Ariel, who is speaking right now, we were involved with the Ministry of Treasury in terms of providing our insights when the plan was developed, and many other organizations, mayors and others. So people look at this plan as something new with great potential. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, there is a problem because, as Ariel indicated, this plan actually has two parts to it. One is part of the 922, which is the general government decision regarding the Arab society in Israel. And there is a certain percentage of this plan that is designated to the Bedouin community. And the other special, I would say, decision that was made by the government is related to the Bedouin community itself in the south only. And that's the figures that Ariel indicated earlier. And the fact that it was two different decisions actually created some suspicion within the Bedouin community. And the term that is being used, I would say, is the carrot and the stick. So on the one hand, the people believe that there's a huge potential for change, including the 4 areas that Ariel indicated. On the other hand, the investment is not touching directly or at all to the unrecognized Bedouin towns. In other words, all the investments that were indicated earlier dealing with the local municipalities are designated towards the recognized towns. I would say the 9 towns, local municipalities with 2 regional municipalities. The other unrecognized towns are not, at least in a clear way, are not included in this plan. People believe, and we also believe, that there are other parts of this plan that were not published or are not in public. And these plans are including some decisions regarding the evacuation of the unrecognized towns, house demolition, increasing the forces of the police and other security forces in order to make sure that the issue of the unrecognized towns is being, I would say, dealt with. That increases a lot of I would say, suspicion within the Bedouin community. So, on the one hand, they believe that the carrot, if you will, is by providing all the resources to recognized towns and the municipalities and councils in order to develop the 4 indicated areas. On the other hand, the stick is dealing with the unrecognized towns, and therefore that puts a lot of pressure on the community, and in certain areas they are not willing to cooperate with the plan because of suspicions and because of fear. The other aspect of this plan that created some obstacles and problems within the community is that the local, I would say, civil society organizations, because of the situation dealing with the recognized towns and not dealing directly in terms of service delivery to the unorganized towns, that puts a lot of the NGOs or the civil society organizations in a very hot spot, I would say, or a very sensitive position, because if they are dealing with this government plan, that will mean that they will not have the ability to continue working with the Bedouin community. So that's another, I would say, obstacle or problem that we're faced with on the ground. The other obstacle that we're very concerned about is that the local municipalities and the local councils actually got used to, throughout the years of dealing with very small developments in these towns, are not capable. They don't have the capabilities and enough, I would say, skills and knowledge and experience in dealing with large-scale projects and large-scale investments like the one that we're talking about. And the concern is that, in terms of the capacity, the local capacity, the concern is that the local capacity is not good enough to perform, at least in some of these councils. We know that, for instance, the Khura municipality and maybe the Negev Bedouin municipality, a little bit Rahat city, are more experienced. The others are still far away from being in that position. As a matter of fact, we, in the last 2 months or so, we were meeting with most of the local teams in these councils, including the mayors and the other heads of departments and etc. And we were not surprised that we found something that's very, very disturbing, is that in some cases they are not familiar even with the basic details regarding these government decisions. So that's another concern that needs to be dealt with. And the last one is for the meanwhile, the last one is that the issue of the unrecognized towns is not included even in the level of service delivery, like education and other basic services. And that's something that people are really also concerned about. And that what that does is that puts a lot of pressure even on the mayors of the recognized towns, because, as you know, the Bedouin community is connected. And those who are living on the unrecognized towns are strongly connected to those who are living on the recognized towns, because some of them are the same families or relatives or are close by people. So the fact that the unrecognized are not served is also impacting on the implementation on the existing or recognized towns. That's to this point.
I will now move to our suggestions with regard to the new plan. One of the major challenges is the fact that the entire program, the entire plan is being coordinated through the Bedouin Land and Development Administration. The reputation of this body is not very high within the Bedouin society, and in fact, the same body, the same government body, has, as Kher said before, the carrot and the stick. On the one hand, they are responsible for all the land issues that are very, very sensitive with the Bedouin society, handling the unrecognized villages, demolition orders, and so on. And on the other hand, now they have 3 or 1.3 billion shekels to invest in economic, social, education, development. The fact that the same body has the carrot and the stick is very, very problematic. And our first suggestion is to separate. We think that Bedouin municipalities should start and learn to work directly with the relevant ministries, whether it's the Ministry of Education, of Welfare Services, of Interior. This will be the best way to build the capacities amongst these municipalities to work with the different civilian ministries. Now, with regard to the role of the civil society, we think that there are 2 roles for the civil society. One of them is in the proxy between the municipalities and the government. Civil society should help the different municipalities to understand into details the plan, and also to monitor the plan, to make sure that all the funds are being and all the programs are being implemented. Shatil is taking a leading role in this area to coordinate and to raise awareness of the different municipalities and to make communication with the government authorities. The other role of civil society that we believe is very, very important is to help the local municipalities, maybe not the strongest municipalities, but those who we find that lack some of the capacities to plan and to implement the program. And over here, for example, in AJEEC, we thought about an idea to set up a social enterprise that will act as a consultancy company, consultancy firm that provides different municipalities the different consultancy services that they will need in order to implement the plan. On the first hand, just to fill out the forms, present the 5 years plan for each one of these municipalities so they can really reach out to the government funding and not missing it. And we think that this way we can also prepare a program to mentor young people from the community to work in this firm, in this social enterprise, and to build the capacity of young generation from the Bedouin society that in the next 5 years plan will be able to carry out the program by itself. So again, I'm repeating the 3 different suggestions. One is that Bedouin municipalities should work directly with different relevant ministries in Israel. We know that this is something that cannot be solved in this conversation, but it's something that we are talking about with the different authorities. And to be honest, I'm not very, very positive that this is going to happen. And then the 2 other suggestions are related to the role of civil society. One is to help different municipalities to understand the program into details and monitor it. And secondly, to help the different municipalities to plan and to implement the program. Kher, would you like to add something else before we open the floor for questions?
No, I think we covered all bases. Go ahead.
Okay, so we'll open for questions. You can either submit them by phone by pressing #1, or you can email them to me if that's easier. I already have one question which I'll pose to you guys before as people start to dial. How much of the capacity building of Bedouin local authorities, how much of that component is currently budgeted through the government plan, and what is the gap that you kind of identify between what is budgeted and the need? Hello?
You have the figures?
Yes, I can answer this. There is funding in the plan for personnel in the different municipalities and for different professional consultants. Each one of the municipalities will also have to hire a coordinator, a full-time coordinator in the municipality to coordinate all these efforts of the new plan. Now, we have to understand that each one of the municipalities is going to get a toolbox, a list of programs that they can implement in their municipality, but they will have to choose. So we don't know yet what kind of items will be chosen by the different municipalities. I don't know if one of them wants to have a community coordinator and the other one wants to invest in sports activities. Some of the programs are mandatory. The consultancy, the improvement of the municipal activities, and so on are mandatory in the plan. So they have some money for personnel, but it will not just happen by hiring people from the outside. We have to work, and it will take a few years to build the capacity within the municipalities by training people from the community to be able to plan and to implement the program in the next stages.
I would just add to that the capacity building is, and that's again one of our concerns, capacity building is a process oriented. It will take maybe 2, 3, 4 years to have the enough, the staff with enough skills to be able to implement. And therefore, this is one of the major roles of the civil society organizations, is to get involved on the first year and the second year, heavily involved in the first and second year, to help in implementing and building the capacity as the process proceeds, and therefore not missing the first 2 very important years in terms of implementation.
Thank you. Before we open on the phone, I I received another question on this issue. Are current national NGOs that are working on building capacity for the purpose of the 922 resolution, are they also working in the Negev, or as part of 922 or not a part of 922? Sikui, are they working with Bedouin local authorities the same way they are now working with Arab localities in the north and in the center on building their capacity to access government money and implement plans?
I would just
yes.
say, Ariel, we can continue. I would just say that our aim is to, first of all, make sure that all the local and the national NGOs that have the skills and have the experience to be involved, because the process needs a lot of effort. And therefore, what we are actually trying to do now on the regional level, at least in the Bedouin community, is to try and get some sort of a round table of organizations that some of them are experts on the grassroots levels, like AJEEC and others. We're focusing more on the sort of grassroots implementation processes. Others are more focusing on the policy change or advocacy aspects and monitoring aspects. And I had mentioned earlier, Shahid as an example, but Sikui and Injaz, who are actually national organizations that were involved in the process from the beginning on the Arab society, decided to be less involved in the south because of lack of expertise on the working with the Bedouin community. But on the other hand, they are sharing with us. That's our agreement with Sikui and Injaz. They're sharing their expertise, their knowledge, with the local NGOs to be able to start the implementation processes. So the aim is to get all these local and the national organizations involved in order to make sure that the implementation will be as effective as possible.
Thank you. Ariel, do you want to add anything, or?
Yeah, as Kher mentioned, we have organized a roundtable with Sikui and Injaz to learn from their experience in the north. They are not going to be involved directly in the Negev. As far as I know, Sikui and Injaz are going to be involved with Khura and Rahat as part of another government plan, the Excellence Program, but not in the other municipalities that are less experienced than Khura and Rahat. I know that the JDC also have a program in the north to help different municipalities to use the government plan, the 922 general plan for the Arab society, but they are also not planning to work in the Negev.
Okay. Do we have any questions on the phone?
Yes, we have a question from Josh Arno. I am opening the line now. Go ahead, please.
Hi, everybody. I have, I guess it's a multi-part question. One is the allocation over 5 years a use it or lose it type phenomenon, or is it something, that could extend over the 5 years if there are projects in the works and plans submitted, et cetera, and things just take longer? Hello?
Ariel?
Yeah. If we look at the previous 5 years plan, money or project did not continue with previous funding. There was another government decision and new funding, and money that was not used was given back to the government. Unfortunately, if we see government reports for the state comptroller about the experience with the previous 5 years plan, the results are not very good. Only 30% of the money for project was used, while more than 100%, 104% if to be precise, for salaries have been used. Now, I must say that the process of preparing the new plan, the 5 years plan, the current one, was different, and I believe that the chances to implement the plan are much higher than the previous plan. Also, different personas in the Bedouin Land Administration have changed. And my belief is that by the end of this 5 years plan, there will be another plan.
Okay, that's a good answer for the first part. I heard at various times, but I don't hear much about it now, that the plan at least contemplated a large investment in housing units, something on the neighborhood of 5,000 units a year for 5 years, or 25,000 units, which seemed to correspond roughly to a large segment of the unrecognized villages that would potentially be evacuated or relocated. And that issue hasn't been really discussed in terms of the 5-year development plans for the recognized municipalities incorporating a kind of a potentially a large-scale development of housing for potentially relocated unrecognized citizens living in unrecognized villages. So I guess my question has to do is there any known information about these housing units and the scale of housing development? How does that tie into any development plans that would be put forth for the recognized villages? And is that a big part of the stick that you're talking about in the carrot-stick equation?
I believe, Josh. Hi, Josh. It's good to hear your voice.
Likewise.
Long time no see. Yes, actually, you indicated the exact situation that we are in right now. The information regarding this housing plan and also the other parts of the stick, if you will, are not very well known. It wasn't published. It wasn't. A while ago, Ariel mentioned the plan and that of the 5,000 housing units, but that was the end of story. We don't know exactly yet where that would be. How would that be covered in terms of budget? And the other aspect of the evacuation or relocation of unorganized towns is not included in this plan, at least not the part that is exposed to the public. So, and that's part of what I mentioned earlier in terms of the obstacles, because that increases the feeling of suspicion within the community, and also puts the local leaders in a very hot spot, because they are being asked all the time about this, and there are no clear answers.
Okay, and the last part of my question is there any discussion about newly recognized or additional recognition of some unrecognized villages?
Ariel?
Not as part of this plan, and not that we know of.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Before taking another question from the phone, I have another question via email which touches on this issue, and that is that the land issue or the land dispute issue is not actually dealt with in the plan. Do you think it is really possible to meaningfully do economic development work without addressing the land issue?
And you're right. I mean, the land dispute issue is not, at least is not included on the plan that we are aware of as part of the carrot or so there are plans in terms of land dispute, in terms of compensation, in terms of dealing with all the other issues, the implementation of the court orders and all the other aspects, but they are not included, at least on the plan that we are familiar with. And in terms of economic development, it could be done. It could happen in the recognized towns. And I can give the example that Josh, and I'm sure that others are familiar with, the Negev initiative, industrial area. So there it's in Rahat, and Rahat is just one partner with also the Havim and Mission On as partners. So that's one initiative that will be benefiting the Rahat and other Bedouins. The other one is in the Shoket. I don't know if we may call it the free zone or the industrial area in Shoket, which will be also including Khura and Lakia and maybe some more towns. There is also the industrial area that's being developed, not part of the government plan, but before it was developed several years ago in Negev Shalom and others. So yes, the answer is you can talk about economic development projects in recognized areas where there's no land dispute. And just to maybe remind all of us that the land dispute is not on 100% land of the Negev. We're talking about people mention figures between the 3 to 10% maybe. So not in all areas there are issues of land dispute. The land dispute issues are mainly on the unrecognized towns, and some in recognized towns, like Lakia and the center, there are some land disputes, but that's on the margins.
Okay, so but given a lot of the master plan's gaps, and this is a continuation of that question, how will investment in infrastructure work? Even in the recognized villages, or were future to be recognized, or
I believe that most of the investment in infrastructures will happen in the recognized villages. Now, if I will continue on the previous questions, in terms of economic development, in the unrecognized villages, we can speak about constructions, about factories, about infrastructures. But there is a lot that can be done on economic development, even in the unrecognized villages. We have shown over the last years that we can open daycare centers and we can bring people to work as doctors in Soroka Hospital and other places. Economic development that does not necessarily require the infrastructures.
Okay. Do we have another question on the phone?
No more questions at this time. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, somebody, Brenda Heineman has just raised her hand. I am opening the line now. Go ahead, please.
Hello?
Yes, we hear you.
Oh, hi. I'd like to hear more about the social enterprise around planning and exactly how it would work, who you would be bringing, what expertise you would be bringing, how it would be constituted, and how soon you think you could get it up and running. And also what type of financial inputs you would need.
Okay, thank you, Brenda, and also good to hear your voice. I'm not sure that right now I can answer all these questions because we're still in a very initial stage of analyzing the plan and understanding exactly what are the necessities of the different municipalities. But we already have a list of expertise that will be needed in those municipalities, whether it's transportation, environment, women economic empowerment, local economic empowerment, and other issues like this. We are not talking about, engineering and other stuff that we don't have any relative advantage for this. In terms of what we need for establishing this, we will need, I guess, seed money to start the business. We believe that we can cover 3 to 4 municipalities, and then if those experts work with 3 to 4 municipalities at the same time, this will be economically viable. I believe that within 2 to 3 weeks, we will be able to present a more clear picture of how this is going to work.
Mhm. But Ariel, just to ask specifically, I guess I have in my mind that there are people who are like consultants on this, and mostly they're in Tel Aviv and not in Beersheba. So, is the intention to kind of bring together people who have expertise in municipal planning with Bedouins from the region to have some kind of transfer of knowledge? I'm just a little unclear on the kind of like where the expertise comes from.
This is an excellent question. In those areas where we have already Bedouin experts, they will be the one that will be hired for this company. In those areas where we don't have experts, and we don't have experts in all the areas, we will hire external experts. I guess that not all of them are going to be from the Arab society or from the Bedouin society, but we will make sure that there are young Bedouins who are joining the company and will be tutored by those experts. And this is, by the way, the added value of a social business, that we are tutoring the new generation, the next generation, and our aim is not only to have more profit, but also to prepare and build the capacity inside the community.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Another question is Yariv shared during the previous call that Bedouin leadership participated in deliberation towards this plan. Are you aware of that? Have you heard any feedbacks from Bedouin leadership about this process, about how they felt, whether they felt a part of this process? Do you have any insight into that?
Yeah, I think when I started, I mentioned the fact that what made this plan a bit different than others that we are familiar with is that in this plan, exactly what you just described happened. The mayors and the local leaders were involved in terms of the consulting processes. The Ministry of Treasury made sure that they had meetings with a wide variety of leaders and others from the community, including NGOs and civil society organizations. Ariel and myself were part, and we met several times with the people of Ministry of Treasury and provided our insights and our recommendations. And some of them were taken into account. Mayors also had a lot of, I don't know if it's a lot of influence, but had some certain influence on the results. So yes, the sense was that there was some good degree of participation.
And I can add to this that shortly before Passover, they invited all the Bedouin mayors and other people from the municipalities to expose and to present the plan. And now they have 2 to 3 months to present their plans and submit it to the ministry.
Thank you. Do you feel as the issue of cross projects, Jewish Bedouin towns cross projects, as a tool for capacity building, whether as part of the clusters, like the official clusters, or just as just cross projects between towns? Is this something that you see as a useful vehicle generally in regards to this, to capacity building in regards to this plan specifically?
If you look at mayors in the Negev today and you compare it to the relations between Jewish and Arab mayors 10 years ago, we are talking about a whole different world. Today, the relations between the local leaders in the Negev is relatively very, very good. Kher mentioned before the Idan HaNegev industrial area, and indeed, in places where the heads of the municipalities cooperate, you can really see a change that can lead to a serious development within those municipalities. So there is the cooperation between Ra'at, Bnei Shimon, and Lehavim. Now there is another aim to build another industrial area between Chura, Lakia, Meitar, which is also very important. And we in AJEEC also try to build up also ties between other municipalities. The role of the clusters is also very important in terms of sharing knowledge, exchanging knowledge between the municipalities. And I think that your point is very, very important. If the municipalities will learn to cooperate, it will work for the benefit of all of them.
And Bedouin towns are open at large to such partnerships? And Jewish towns, I mean...
Yeah. Yeah, the towns are open to these partnerships, at least those who are involved in the process. For instance, if you take, for example, Rahat with the Negev is very heavily involved in this, so there are intentions of also creating more opportunities in terms of tourism and other areas. Kher, for instance, is involved with the surrounding Jewish municipalities in certain projects. One of them, Josh, familiar with very much at Yawadi Atir, and with some other initiatives that are based on that. The Shoket industrial area is going to be partnership between Bedouin and Jewish municipalities. There are attempts in terms of Tel Sheva and Be'er Sheva, thinking about a shared industrial area. That's probably going to take longer periods of time because of local, I would say, leadership that's not quite trained yet. So the potential is there. There's some talks between Be'er Sheva and Negev Shalom as well. So the intentions are there, and I think the mayors, as Ariel indicated, are more open in terms of looking at some of the regional developments, because everybody is identifying this as also an opportunity, not just for services, but also for income that comes from taxes, from industrial taxes.
Okay. Do we have questions on the phone? Otherwise, I do have another question by email.
Yes. We do have a question online. On the phone from Robert Gordon. I'm opening the line now.
Hi, Bob. We can hear you.
Hi. You mentioned that Sikui and Injaz won't have a direct role in the Negev. How about Shatil and ACAP? Will they have any direct activities?
Well, please.
As I mentioned earlier, we started a roundtable of organizations. Hello?
Yes, we hear you.
A roundtable of civil society organizations focusing on their own area of expertise, and Shatil is one of the organizations that will be mainly focusing not on the grassroots service delivery or implementation, rather on the sort of, I would say, more looking at hiring somebody that will be helping the council in terms of, I would say, utilizing the budget as much as possible and monitoring the development of the plan. Again, Injaz, as I mentioned earlier, Injaz and Sikui were involved from the beginning on the 922 plan. And what they are doing now, as Ariel indicated earlier, that they're working also with Kher and with Rahat on another plan, not this specific one. Our recent talks with Sikui and Injaz, that they are willing to share their knowledge and experience from up north, central and northern Israel, the Arab community, also sharing this experience with the NGOs in the south.
So I would understand that ACAP, the Arab Center for Alternative Planning, is not yet, at least, directly involved.
Not as far as we know. I'm not in our roundtable, but one of our plans is also to include them in this process.
Thank you.
Yeah.
In what ways do you see this plan as an improvement over the first plan, the previous plan? And what do you attribute to this improvement? Is it beyond the scope of money?
Ariel?
Yeah, I think that we have to look, and we mentioned this before, at the process of preparing the plan. It's very different from the previous process that was done without consulting with the community, and this time it was done in a very different way. I mean, they are not obliged to receive all our suggestions, but indeed they have received some of our and other people's suggestions. This is one. And the second one, I think, is the fact that they concentrate on empowering the local municipalities. This may not be very easy on the short term, but I'm sure that on the long term, this will be the right decision. Because in the end of the day, we cannot have negotiators between the Bedouin society and the government. In the end of the day, the local municipalities are the one who are responsible for their citizens, and they will have to be the one who are strong enough to work with different government ministries and provide for their citizens.
Okay. We do have another question, but I'm emailed that you don't recognize the question submission. It's pound one. It's pound one. If it doesn't go through for some reason, you can email me the question and I'll ask. Operator, do we have? Does it come through?
Yes, we now will have a question from Josh Arno. I'm opening the line now.
Another one from Josh. Okay, good. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks. I was pushing £1 instead of pound one. Sorry about that.
In the detail. God is in the details.
Yeah. I wanted to hear, since a big chunk of the $1.3 billion is supposedly earmarked for economic development, and there seems to be, I think we heard from one of the previous speakers from the task force calls that tourism is a significant area. The Ministry of Tourism is not really participating that directly with the 922 plan, but the tourism is a piece of economic development that is not directly, related to industrial parks and kind of standard types of economic development. But the question is, outside of the industrial park concept for bringing jobs and industry into the area, are there other forms of economic development that AJEEC-NISPED envisions? What ways how is that going to be fostered? How are plans going to be developed for these non-industrial park type opportunities? How are the kind of community-based enterprises going to see any of this funding, or is that something that's just going to fall by the wayside?
It's a good question, Josh. Indeed, there is funding in the program for development of small and medium enterprises within the municipalities. And the budget for the municipalities themselves also include money for at least experts or consultants on issues of tourism. However, I think that relatively little money is left for regional cooperations between the municipalities. This is something that we brought forward when we had discussions with the Ministry of Finance before the approval of the program, that it's important to empower the local municipalities, but it's also very, very important to create cooperation on the regional level between the municipalities. There's not lots of money for this area, but indeed we believe that there is a lot that can be done on issues like tourism. Now, With regards to industrial areas, we have to remember that the Negev is not that big. Idana Negev is going to be the second biggest industrial area in Israel. Shoket Junction industrial area is also going to be relatively very big. There is no reason to set up industrial areas in each one of the Bedouin villages. So what they are planning, and this is something that I've also learned from Yariv, they are planning commercial centers in the cities, in the Bedouin villages themselves, while the heavy industry is going to be concentrated in the regional industrial areas like Shoket and Idana Negev.
What role, I mean, it seems to me that there's efforts being put in to build capacity at the municipal level so that they can submit their development plans, which they have to do, and hopefully get their hands on some of the money. Regarding economic development, how do you envision the municipalities or the gaining access to funds for economic development? And is that something that is going to be part of these 5-year development plans? Are they going to try to incorporate economic development in there, or where does economic development really fit in? How are the funds accessed? How are the plans developed, and who's supporting that process?
Kher, do you want to go ahead, or?
Go ahead and I'll ask it to you. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So today, only one municipality has a business department. This is the municipality of Hura, and Rahat is in the process of setting up also a business unit in the municipalities. The other municipalities today, I believe, do not still have the capacity to plan and implement serious economic development programs. However, this is going to be the role, to some extent, of the clusters. As far as we understand, the clusters already have funding to hire economic development coordinators for each one of the Bedouin municipalities. Some of them already did. We went to Ariel last week, and they've already hired someone who looks very, very professional. And they're the ones who are going to start and planning the economic development for those villages. Inside this program, there is money for training, vocational trainings. There is money for commercial centers. There is money for small and medium enterprises. I did not see, big funding for bringing factories to the area and things like that. I don't think this is going to be part of the plan.
Well, I think also adding to what Ariel just mentioned in terms of tourism, there are some certain and very serious plans to develop local tourism, mainly small, businesses around tourism. They are. You asked about our role in this. We are now working on the plan for what we call Nahal Hebron, the Hebron River plan, and which is including also some ideas for local tourism and the Bedouin towns in Tel Sheva, in Hura, and maybe in Lakia, hopefully, and some other surrounding Bedouin towns that will focus mainly on tourism on the towns themselves, like working with women, working with local communities in terms of developing small initiatives of tourism. And that, I believe that will also be one of the major changes in the next 5 years or so.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
That's helpful. Seems to be the key for economic development.
Sorry, can
Yes, sure. Go ahead.
I didn't hear the questions.
Oh, okay. So I was actually going to ask another last question, which is focusing on education. Are you aware about the education funding in the plan. What is it going to go towards? To building more schools, more teaching hours? What would be the education funding component that you anticipate?
So there are two types of funding for education. One of them is for construction of new classes and so on. And the other fund is additional 112 million shekels that are going to go for improving the educational level in the schools. This is only for formal education. Funding for informal education is going to come from Government Decision 922, that, as we mentioned before, 15% of this decision has to go to the Bedouin community. We have been talking and working with people from the informal department in the Ministry of Education for the past few months, and actually today they have released the new, call for proposals for different organizations to come up with their ideas for informal education activities.
And I think just adding to that, in terms of the government, in terms of the Ministry of Education, they are very well open-minded in terms of working not just with the municipalities on this, but also with the civil society organizations. I think my friend Ariel mentioned that in the last time that he talked to with the group, that they're working a lot of involvement in this specific topic in terms of mental education. They're welcoming a lot of input from the civil society organizations, and that's also a positive change.
Okay, thank you. I assume, Donna, we don't have any more questions on the phone.
That is correct.
We are reaching our end of the call. Thank you, Kher, Ariel, for sharing your insight with so much detail and patience. Going through so many questions, it's been truly informative and eye-opening. And we very much look forward to continue these conversations with you as the plan's starting to be implemented and we learn more about it and get more details about the challenges that it faces. So we definitely look forward to continue hearing from you and learning from you. Everyone will continue to provide education on this written and by phones. If there are any follow-up questions, you're welcome to continue emailing me, and I will forward your questions to Kher and Ariel. And this call was also recorded, so you're welcome to share this with your constituencies. It'll be up on our website in a few days. Thank you, everyone. Kher, Ariel, thank you again, and Laila Tov.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. The call has now ended. Have a great day.